Hey, thanks for tuning back into Channel 3. I'm Brentendo64, and I love odd and obscure video games. I'm not sure why, but whenever I come across games that have weird visuals or strange soundtracks, I instantly gravitate toward them and want to learn everything I can about them. The game we're talking about today pretty much fits that bill to a T. But before we move on, do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to my channel so that I can go from having 3 average viewers to maybe 5 or 6. Alright, let's blow this cartridge. In 1996, the game we're talking about today, Keio Flying Squadron 2, came out for the Sega Saturn. Since the Sega Saturn was one of the first 5th generation consoles on the market, there was really no standard set yet for how a 5th generation console game should look. I mean, this was the generation that made the jump from 2D games to fully fledged 3D games. Unfortunately, games like Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot had yet to set the gold standard for 3D games, so Saturn developers took genres that had worked well for them in the past, like fighters, shoot-'em-ups, and 2D platformers, and pretty much just made them run smoother, look better, and sound prettier. And that is where Keio Flying Squadron 2 fits in. Keio Flying Squadron 2 combines 2 of the genres that the Sega Saturn did best: the 2D side-scrolling platformer and the shoot-'em-up, or the cute-'em-up in this case. On the surface, Keio Flying Squadron 2 looks like nothing more than your run-of-the-mill 2D platformer, which is why you probably have never heard of it. But upon closer observation, there is so much to love about this obscure title. So where do we begin? Well, before the game even starts, you're greeted by this cool-ass 90s anime-style cinematic, which was actually made by Studio Pierrot, the studio responsible for Yu Yu Hakusho, the Dragon Quest anime, Naruto, and a ton more. This cutscene for me really sets the tone for the game, and most importantly, functions as a herald of the zany and completely farcical nature of the game. To sum it up, the main character, Rami, is having dinner with her family when the pompous queen Himiko crashes the party, literally, and steals the family treasure, a magical orb, one of 6 magical orbs that when brought together bring great wealth. She doesn't get far though, because as she's making her exit, Dr. Pawn, a talking raccoon on a floating ship, smashes into her and takes the orb. He then drops a damn nuke on Rami and her family. Rami then transforms into what she calls hyper cutie bunny form. I'm not lying. And when her grandmother finds a scroll that explains the significance of the orb, she sends Rami to join the chase for the orbs. That's where Rami's adventure begins. Once you start the game, you'll find yourself in a forest level, and you might call me easy to please, but this is just beautiful. The foreground elements really bring the level to life, the art is detailed, and the animation is pretty smooth. The game is a 2D platformer up until you reach the 3rd level, which is a cute-'em-up level, and honestly, it's pretty great. The music in this level is epic, and it really sets the mood for the shoot-'em-up gameplay. The game switches flawlessly from a platformer to a shoot-'em-up at various points in the game, and it's at these points where the game really shows how weird it can be. Like in this level, where you're shooting fucking koalas floating on tree stumps in space. The game isn't limited to platforming or shoot-'em-up style gameplay though. In this stage, amusement park, you ride a roller coaster, jumping rail to rail very similar to the way you do in Donkey Kong Country's Minecart Carnage. This level, however, is way easier, but that doesn't make it any less fun. It took me only 1 try to pass this level, and believe me, I suck at games. But I still found it to be pretty thrilling and fast-paced. The way the level indicates that it's time to transition from track to track is pretty straightforward, but exhilarating nonetheless. There's also a baby-looking thing carrying a bag of wind shooting out these circular objects. I believe the guy shooting these objects is supposed to be Fujin, the god of wind. See the cloud he's riding on and the bag of wind there? Don't mention Mortal Kombat. Not everything has to be about Mortal Kombat. Okay, Fujin is totally in Mortal Kombat as well. Anyway, this actually isn't the only traditional Japanese reference in the game. For example, one of the boss battles, which, by the way, are the weirdest part of the game, you fight a giant possessed head wearing no masks, which are masks used in traditional Japanese theater in order to convey and induce various emotions. As you inflict damage onto the boss, he strips one mask, revealing another behind it, until the last mask finally falls off, and honestly, I have no fucking clue who this guy is and why his eyes are censored. But it's pretty fucking scary. Another reference to Asian mythology lies within the last boss battle, when the evil raccoon Dr. Pawn resurrects Apocalypse, an ancient entity who allegedly created Mount Fuji in one day, and I was actually unable to find very much information on this guy on the internet, so don't go quoting me in your thesis on traditional Asian folklore. Wait, actually? That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, do that. The mythological references aren't exclusive to Asian regions either. The boss you fight after the flying koala space level is actually of American folklore, West Virginian to be more specific. That's right, it's the 3-meter alien, also known as the Flatwoods Monster, or Braxy. Braxy was an entity reported to have been seen in the skies of Braxton County, West Virginia, in the town of Flatwoods in 1952. If you're not familiar with that is a train. If you're not familiar with West Virginian folklore and this still sounds familiar to you, that's because Braxy is in another game as well. Fallout 76. The story is that a few buddies went to investigate a strange light that flew across town. What they found when investigating was a creature that was about 10 feet tall, had yellow glowing eyes, and a head shaped like the ace of spades. What they didn't mention, however, is that it would sprout long, feminine legs if attacked. Seriously, what's up with these legs? Why is an alien wearing heels in space? But then again, should I really be surprised? I mean, this is the game that has the fucking flying koalas. Once you defeat Braxy, the game takes a spontaneous turn, which, of course, should come at no surprise at this point. Rami comes back down from space and discovers that a martial arts tournament is being held in order to commemorate the completion of a new castle. And the prize for winning the tournament is an orb. In case you forgot, I sure did, Rami's goal throughout the game is to acquire 6 orbs. After an odd but charming animated sequence, you are then placed in a tournament bracket, and who you face in the first match actually varies from playthrough to playthrough. But no matter who you get, you can always bet on them being weird as fuck. The second and final boss battle in the tournament is always the same, however, and it is against the woman who attempted to steal your family's orb in the first place, the Pompous Queen, Himiko. Once you defeat the Pompous Queen and make it to the final stage, Dr. Pon reveals that he used one of the stones to resurrect the guy we talked about earlier, Apocalypse. Remember that koala bear in space and the alien wearing the heels and the censored eye guy? Remember how weird they were? Well, those aren't half as weird as this last level. Apocalypse blasts a beam at you, misses you, then inhales and consumes you. You then end up in, I don't know, I guess his stomach? Where a bunch of other little raccoons end up, and I don't know, I think those are gnomes. Anyway, the point of the level is to advance out of the stomach, or esophagus, to escape Apocalypse's body, all while defeating enemies on the way up and attacking his heart. What platforms are you jumping to reach the top, you may ask? Words. You jump on words to reach the top. Now, I've played the game in Japanese, but there is an English version, and I've tried my best to find some sort of meaningful correlation between the words you jump on and the context of the level. As you ascend, the first few words you come across are words like ninja, samurai, and shogun. From that, I have assessed that maybe this represents the fallen warriors that Apocalypse consumed in the past. Then, you come across words like sushi and sukiyaki, which are both Japanese food dishes. And okay, fine, maybe in between eating his enemies, Apocalypse had a few normal snacks. But then, karaoke. Yep, karaoke. At this point, I had nearly given up on trying to make sense of this, but I held out, hoping maybe the next few words would put it all together. Then, harakiri. Do you know what harakiri is? It means killing yourself by stabbing yourself in the stomach and disemboweling yourself, taking all of your organs from your abdominal area out of the abdominal cavity. Don't mention Mortal Kombat again. I'm sorry, this totally happens in Mortal Kombat. Finally, the last word you jump on to escape Apocalypse is otaku, which is Japanese slang for dweeb. Yeah, I don't know, I gave up on karaoke. Finally, you reach the end of the level, but Apocalypse makes one last-ditch effort to defeat Rami, and ends up destroying the treasure. Fortunately for Rami, she made use of some extra space in her outfit, and made off with 2 bars of gold, which concludes the game. I think I'd be stating the obvious if I said Keio Flying Squadron 2 was one of the weirdest games I've ever completed. The game was also extremely easy. I mean, I realized halfway through the game that as long as you held a weapon, you really can't die. But that doesn't mean the game is bad though. As a matter of fact, its deviation from conventional themes and its unique sense of humor actually added to the charm of the game, something it had plenty of to begin with. The beautiful artwork, fluid animation, quirky themes, and the game's soundtrack, which by the way is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, make me feel like the designers and writers behind Keio Flying Squadron 2 were just having a blast making the game. It makes me wonder why weird Japanese titles like this never made their way to the West. And it reminds me that there are so many obscure games that I probably won't ever have a chance to play. It also makes me ponder the idea that my favorite game could exist somewhere and I may never even discover it. But I guess that's why I love playing weird and obscure games. Whew, okay. Thanks for tuning in to Channel 3. I'm Brentendo64, and if you have a favorite weird and obscure game that you'd like to recommend, drop a comment down below and let me know what it is so I can give it a try. Oh, and I'd like to remind you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Let's blow this cartridge.
Hey, you very good.